Billy Napier has some big-time targets still on the board as they make a run at a top-5 finish this recruiting cycle. Let's bring on Florida Gators expert Corey Bender from Gators Online to talk about UF's recruiting momentum. Corey, great to have you on.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Josh. Good to catch up, man.
The recruiting world was buzzing over the weekend, and a lot of it surrounded five-star offensive tackle Samson Okunlola. He was in Gainesville on an official visit. It was his second visit to check out UF in the last month. He's making his big decision on Thursday. Corey, should UF be considered the favorite heading into this one?
I think as of today, Florida has the most momentum. You know, they got the last 2 visits from the kid, including actually 2 multi-day visits. One was obviously unofficial, one was an official. Player development's a big thing Florida's preaching to him. They think he can step right in and play right away. They're very high on him. He also had a very good time with the commits. The players on the roster kind of gave him an honest review of like what life is like under Billy Napier in Gainesville. So I think right now, as of today, I think Florida probably has the most momentum and sitting in the best spot. But then today, Mario Cristobal is going in home. So that's going to be a big visit. And I think it's all going to revolve around that. And because when I asked him over the weekend, so Rob Sale and Darnell Stapleton, they already saw him on the road. They already did it in home. Billy Napier hasn't. So I asked him, I said, hey, when's Napier going to come by and see you? I know obviously they're prepping for the Las Vegas Bowl. They're about to go out west. So it's kind of a tricky time as far as when Florida can get back on the road for some of these kids. But for a kid like Samson, you make it work. He's that good of a player. So he said if Napier comes and sees me, it'll be after, and that's if I'm going there. So it was kind of like the way he worded it was like, hey, if I'm going there, it's going to be after I make my commitment. So Florida's done seeing him, as far as so Mario Cristobal and the Hurricanes will be the last ones to see him as far as having a face-to-face meeting. So I think it's going to revolve around this meeting today with him deciding here on Thursday. I think that lasting impression by Miami, a school he's been really familiar for a while, that could have the final say here. But as it stands this morning, on Tuesday morning, I like where Florida stands, but that could change.
Yeah, and this one has kind of been a back and forth between the two schools. Early on, Chad Simmons was all over this one, going to visit Samson Okunlola up there in Massachusetts, and he felt that Miami was kind of running away with this thing. Now, at the time, Florida wasn't really involved. Florida gets him, like you said, on that multi-day unofficial visit about a month ago. They bring him back to campus now for an official. It certainly feels like that momentum's there, but we know that this is going to come down to NIL. Do you have any sense in terms of what's being offered by either side?
Not exact numbers, but I know, and I've heard this for a while, that Miami was well ahead of the pack when it came to the NIL type of stuff, the package when it comes to that. And that's been the case. And I know a lot of us have kind of heard from different sources. I know you have too, that's been like a huge factor for Samson throughout this whole process. And Miami, with a lot of these kids, they've really been going well beyond and doing a great job in that department. Florida has as well, with Jane Rashad and a lot of these other kids. Absolutely. But from what I've heard from other people in recent weeks is, Miami's, ahead of the pack in that regard. Is that going to be the total pack? Is that going to be the whole say in his decision? It's going to be a huge chunk of it. It's going to be a major say where he goes. But, obviously player development, relationships, that's going to be a huge thing as well. Exact numbers, no, but I know both schools are definitely well aware that that's probably what it's going to take to kind of reel in Samson.
Yeah.
So we'll see how it all kind of plays out. But I definitely probably would favor Miami in that department as of right now when it comes to the NIL package.
Do you think this recruitment is kind of whoever wins it kind of makes a statement in the state of Florida when it comes to NIL? Because we've seen some big battles play out. We've seen Miami win Cormani McClain in, the last minute and what we deem to be a big NIL win for them. But then again, Florida has been fighting too. They snatched Jaden Rashada back from Miami after they get his commitment. So now we kind of have the rubber match here. It's the best 2 out of 3 for Samson Okunlola. I want to know, when are you dropping your recruiting prediction?
Yeah, so I think tonight or tomorrow morning, I'm going to drop my prediction. After this in-home with Mario Cristobal, I think that's going to be the final say, like I was saying, and I'm going to connect with people tonight and tomorrow and then kind of see where everything stands. And I think that's kind of where, like, if it wasn't for the in-home, I might have probably dropped one for Florida already. It was that close. I know they knocked out of the park over the weekend. He rated the official visit a 10 on a 1-10 scale. I mean, everything was great. He loved it. But obviously having that last face-to-face meeting is always so important down the stretch. Who has that final say? And, from NIL, which we've been hearing all along, that Miami's done a great job in that regard when it comes to recruiting him. So I think tomorrow morning we'll have about probably a clear picture of where I think he's going to end up. And I kind of I put it on Corey's Corner, another intel piece last night, and I kind of told people in that I was like, hey, I like where Florida stands right now, but like I said, it's not a final prediction. It's going to come after that in home with Miami.
Yeah, I'm really intrigued to see how it plays out. I kind of feel like Florida has the momentum if you follow the visits on where he's been. I really like the fact that they've hosted him on those 2 multi-days. But like you said, this in-home with Miami tonight will be very important. Let's talk about another South Florida prospect right now that was on campus over the weekend. 4-star running back Mark Fletcher, fresh off of his decommitment from Ohio State. Well, I shouldn't say fresh off. He's now about 5 or 6 weeks out from his decommitment from Ohio State. But he was in Gainesville, and what are you hearing coming out of that one?
Yeah, right now I like where Florida stands, man. From when even before the visit, I put in a prediction for Florida. I think my confidence level was at like 65% or 70, somewhere in that range. And, I think the biggest thing I've said all along to a lot of our subscribers at Gators Online is, same with Miami, that official visit to Miami, they'll be after. I've always been a person, whoever gets that final official visit is always in a good spot with the kid. But Mark Fletcher said he's playing on signing in February. I don't think that's really concrete. I think he put that out there right after he decommitted from Ohio State, thinking, hey, I need a lot more time. I've been committed to Ohio State for a while. I can't just take these visits and then just figure out where I'm going. But he went to Florida for the South Carolina game, just went for an official. Been to Miami a ton over the last couple of years. Now he's taking an official this weekend. But with that being said, I know the family's very much on board with Florida. That's definitely where I think he's going to end up as of right now. He definitely has that physical makeup and skill set for what Florida wants in a running back. They like those big bruising running backs with good size who can kind of get downhill between the tackles. So I think from an on-field fit to his relationship with the coaches, Billy Napier, Jamar Jaluk, Rob Sale. I mean, they did it in home last week. They brought the full house, and that made a really good impression on the family. And, Treon, well, I talked to a Florida commits parent not too long ago, and they told me, they said, hey, if all goes as planned, Webb and Fletcher will be the running backs in this class.
Strong class.
So behind the scenes, I know a lot of people in Florida's camp feel pretty good about where Fletcher stands. Who knows, though? This, like I said, official visit to Coral Gables this weekend, and we always know that can kind of stir the pot a little bit and change things. But as of right now, I definitely like where Florida stands with Fletcher. I feel confident in that prediction.
Yeah, he's been to Miami a couple times, but he's also been to UF a couple times. Are you thinking that right now it's a 2-team race and there's really no reason for him to take this to February?
That's where I'm at with everything, because we spoke to him a few weeks ago, and the only other school he mentioned, it's about a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, was Jackson State, and that was right before Prime took the Colorado job. So now with him, Jackson State, maybe, I mean, who knows, maybe he still just
Colorado
wants to
just
see Jackson
landed
State.
a big 4-star commitment from Dylan Edwards, former Notre Dame running back, over the weekend. So maybe that does take it out. So I think the focus is with the 2 in-state schools. So like you said, It would be something kind of crazy for him to take it to February because he's already taken official visits to both Miami and Florida. So at this point, it's like, do you really need to take it another month? What do you think?
Exactly. That's exactly where I'm thinking. Yeah, it's like you already kind of know what both schools have to offer. And obviously, he was at Miami even under the previous staff. So the schools, without the staffs, he's already familiar with both of them. The staffs, he's on in-homes. He's going to officially visit both. Unless he's that conflicted where he's going to go, I'd just be shocked if he waited that long. I think, like you said, I think eventually he moves this up. And I think he even makes a commitment before then. I heard rumors that maybe it could even happen this week. But now with the whole Miami official visit, maybe that kind of delays everything and say, hey, let me just sit back. Let me go to Miami first. So I'm with you. I think you and I are in the same camp of that. I don't think he drives out to February when it's all said and done.
All right. Well, another recruit that's making us wait is 5-star cornerback Desmond Ricks, but he's not making us wait till February. Only one day. Signing day is on the 21st. Desmond Ricks Day is on the 22nd. He's going to announce his commitment one day after the National Signing Day. Desmond Ricks, big-time official visit 2 weeks ago to UF. Everything sounded great. He brought his family in. Do you think that momentum can carry over for UF all the way to the 22nd?
It's going to be tough, man. And I say that, I mean, we always go over it, the order of the visits. Right when he put out his official visit schedule, I thought that was kind of working against UF, that obviously it's good you're getting an official visit, but LSU's been the school rumored to have the edge in this recruitment. They get the last visit, and then Alabama's Alabama. We know that, and they rolled out the red carpet this past weekend. And with Florida, obviously I talked to his mother for the official visit recap because Desmond's not doing interviews, and she said, Corey Raymond's the best defensive backs coach in the country. She loved the cohesiveness of the staff, how everyone's just tight knit in Gainesville. Early playing time. So you look at Florida, and obviously his parents live now just south of Bradenton. They moved down here within the last year. So you kind of look at Florida, the pros and cons. Florida checks out almost all the boxes. But as far as where they're at right now in the field, probably that's where it's against Florida a little bit. They're kind of rebuilding where LSU and Alabama are, obviously top 10 teams. So I think right now the odds are kind of stacked up against Florida. And then Billy Napier used his visit too. They came last week, which I thought was kind of interesting. I thought maybe he'd be one of the guys that he would, even though they're prepping for the Las Vegas Bowl, maybe try to practice and then come back to Florida one of those evenings and do an in-home. I still expect them to meet with the parents though before then, but I think right now it's LSU and Alabama and Florida third. And then even after the official of Florida, you could say Florida was up a little bit higher. They really made a good impression, but as time goes on and these other schools get them on campus after that, I think that's
going to be a tough battle.
Yeah, that's a tough thing to kind of overcome.
Yeah. All right. Moving on to 4-star defensive lineman John Walker, who is committed to UCF, but he took an official visit to UF over the weekend and has since said that he's going to make a, quote, final decision. I love these final decisions from kids that are committed. He's going to do that on signing day. How do you feel about the Gators' chances to flip John Walker from UCF on National Signing Day?
Yeah, this one's nearly a coin flip for me. It's that close. I think the kid, honestly, I think it's very close. I know with UCF, it's close to home. They're going to the Big 12. I know the family's really on board with UCF. And then Coach Martin, the defensive tackles coach, that's arguably the number one reason why he's committed to UCF. That's his best relationship in the recruiting process. But you flip to Florida where it's, the lifelong favorite school, SEC, his teammate Jakeem Jackson's committed. And they've been really, and I think one thing too, it gets overlooked is Florida's been really respectful in their approach with him. And he's mentioned that even though I committed to UCF, they've been really respectful to me. They weren't kind of saying the wrong negative recruiting. And they just said, hey man, you can come right in. And I've heard this from a few sources that Florida feels like he can come right in and challenge for a starting spot. They think he's that good of a player. If not, worst case scenario, he'll be in the rotation. So I think overall, it's a hard decision. I can see why he's kind of going back and forth. But right now, I'd give Florida the slight edge there. I just think, the one thing that was rumored was he might go to UCF this weekend for an unofficial visit. And I was like, well, if he's going to – that's almost – what that tells me is I want to get UCF on my mind again to, convince me even more this is where I should go. But I heard that visit's not going to be happening anymore. So that kind of
favors Florida. Could he end up anywhere this weekend or just stay at home?
No, I think he's – staying back. And I think this week is when he's deciding. He's going to tell whichever coach and then reveal it next week. So it's so close, man. I think with Florida, obviously they check off all the boxes. UCF does too, as far as what he wants. And Florida, a big thing from what I was hearing all along is getting the mom and the dad on board with Florida. They like Florida, but they're really comfortable at UCF. I spoke to his head coach yesterday, and he's like, hey, man, when he committed to UCF, his parents told me, they wouldn't lie to me, that they all thought he was going to Ohio State. And, I know people always say that, hey, it's up to his parents. It's really not. It's really where the kid wants to go and where he thinks is home. So, and that's coming from his head coach, who I trust pretty well. He's always been honest with me. But, yeah, I think right now I give Florida the slight edge. But in putting in a prediction, it's going to be one of those predictions where you don't feel overly confident until the kid announces himself.
Yeah, well, we'll see. That's interesting to see if he ends up anywhere. Like you said, if he ends up sitting at home this weekend, then I really like Florida's chances.
100%. Yeah, I just when the UCF unofficial was brought up, I was like, man, that kind of shows me where his heart probably really is. It's just give me that last feeling about the Knights, just to make me sleep better at night. Hey, this is where I want to go. But yeah, that's kind of made this recruitment more interesting here. So I know Florida feels good. UCF feels good. It's one of those classic recruitments where when he announces, when the Twitter page for each school, when they announce their letters of intent, it's going to be like, oh, you're going to have Florida fans excited, or it's going to be like, oh my God, he signed with UCF. But it's good. It's going to be a fun recruitment to track down over the next week and a half.
All right. Florida fans are really hoping that the Gators can slip into the top 5 in the On3 2023 consensus team rankings. And they're on the move. I think the roadmap to landing a top 5 class starts with Samson Okunlola on Thursday. Florida is 5-starless. They don't have a 5-star commitment yet, but they could with Samson Okunlola. I think if they are able to check that box on Thursday, they very well could fight for a top 5 class. So to wrap this thing up, like I said, the Gators currently sit at number 9 right now. I just want to ask you, give me 3 numbers. What would be a great finish for UF? What's your expected finish for UF? And what would be considered a disappointing finish for UF?
I think like you said, even with these commitments, it's hard to climb the rankings, with how it's structured a little bit. So I think if you land at 5, even 6, I think that's great. Yeah, I was just, especially when you consider the season they had. I think all along, I don't think anyone really felt deep down that Florida was going to knock it out of the park on the field this year. We kind of knew there was kind of a rebuilding year. So I think 5 or 6 would be great. My expectation, I would say, is probably around 7. That's
More
where I kind of see it. Yeah, that's where I kind of see it now, especially now that they're at number 9. Before they're at number 7, so I was kind of leaning the other way. But this thing changes, especially with signing day coming up. I think now, though, a big disappointment would be them falling at 10 or 11, just because not because of Florida, but other schools, them getting commitments and then pushing Florida down a little bit. So. Yeah, I think overall around 7 is realistic, but I even think, man, if you do 5 or 6 would be great, especially with all these schools about to sign more kids to their class. So, yeah, but we're talking about the Florida fan base, man. So it's just
they're great.
5 or 6 is
What's
good.
up, guys?
Yeah, yeah, they're a huge fan. So it's going to be interesting, man. With Samson, he, like you said perfectly, he's going to be the one that kind of I feel like that determines that momentum. And even they get John Walker, he's highly ranked, but it's not one of those commitments on paper for the
that's
rankings.
Going to really move the needle in the recruiting rankings.
100%.
Late phase of recruiting in this cycle, 5 stars are going to move the needle. So you land Samson Okunlola, the Gators probably jump 1 or 2 spots. Then you finish with a Mark Fletcher, maybe a Jordan Hall. Now you are talking about the potential to see a top 6, top 5 finish. So it'll be an exciting week, 100%. A big week for Gator fans. Corey Bender, thanks for stopping by the Inside Scoop.
Yeah, appreciate it, Josh. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you for watching. Make sure you smash that subscribe button for me. And remember to check out all the videos on the On3 YouTube page.